Hello, everyone. Sorry for the tech issues. It's a bit of a last minute podcast here we're doing. Cam should be unfrozen now, should be good to go. I am Ernest Jones. Welcome to Your Brand, Your Business, an emergency sort of vodcast talking about DMCA today. I'm a CPA. I help creators with taxes. Let me know if the volume levels are good.
Yeah,
And
volume testing. How's it going?
yeah,
Good.
test one, two, 1, 2. And
Cool.
I am joined by the prettiest person at the ball today, Noah Downs.
Well, it's been a heck of a day, man. It's started off with DJ Week this morning, and then Twitter exploded, and Reddit followed, and that was fun.
Yeah, I turned Noah down a little bit. Thank you for that feedback. Let me know if
You
that's
turn
good.
me down all the time.
I do. I do turn you down all the time. So yeah, it's been a hectic day. Streamer Twitter, as it is wont to do, blew up a little bit today, or over the weekend on DMCA stuff. We've done this before, so that's why it's round two. Kind of our subject matter today is we're going to talk about kind of what the DMCA is, what it does, how you can protect yourself, kind of your recourse, and all that good stuff. I kind of wanted, because both of our professional lives are very hectic, Noah's more so than mine today.
Which is weird because you've been doing tax stuff, and it's like the tail end of tax season.
Yeah, so just a reminder for everyone, this is the only mention I'll make of it. Tax day is about 37 days out if you haven't filed for 2019 yet. So yeah, let's get that done. So Noah, I think I have a chance to talk to you about this, but what I thought we would do is, since you are the expert and I am the dumb one on this show, I am going to kind of walk through the DMCA, its history, its formatting, and you're just going to chime in because you're going to probably do a lot of talking during this show.
Yeah, sure. Perfect.
And time for disclaimers. This is all considered educational in nature, general guidance. This is not specific tax and or legal advice to you as a person. Yes, you in the back of chat, not you. We are not your professionals, however, we could be. So you know where to find us, and we can assist you with that. Did I get that okay, Noah? Anything else?
I think that was pretty good. The only thing I typically add is this is not direct legal advice for you. Go to a friend's house.
Go to a friend's house, exactly. All right, so let's get into it. So the DMCA was very popular on streamer Twitter this past weekend. It's been cropping up on the fringes, I would say, for the past 4 or 5 months. I'm thinking specifically of the takedowns that happened to the broadcasters who were restreaming the Democratic debates. In terms of actual like noise in the space, and I don't mean noise as in not important, but kind of news in the scene.
Yeah, exactly. And then a few months ago, what happened was a lot of streamers received DMCA takedowns for streaming the Democratic debates. Actually, funny enough, a lot of those takedowns turned out to be false takedowns, and so we can get into that a little bit today. But when we say this is DMCA Apocalypse Round 2, we're not even talking about that. We're talking about this is Round 2 from 2017. And 2017 was the last time we had a huge music shakeup on Twitch.
Yep. And what I'm going to do actually here is I'm going to post your article from 2017 in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Medium article. You can search it, by basically looking up DMCA Noah Downs, and I'm sure it'll be one of the top hits.
It is. Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about it. So DMCA stands for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It was, believe it or not, 22 years old now, roughly. 1998.
1998.
Yeah. So one thing that I've seen a lot of is, look, this law needs to be revised, and I agree with that sentiment because, we've come a long way technologically in 22 years. However, kind of the point of this is that not what things should be or whether things are equitable or fair. We kind of have to be beholden to the law as it stands now.
Right. And one of the things I think it's important to say is exactly, what the background of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act is, why it was created. And I'm happy to go into it unless you'd rather.
Well, no, so then we're just going to play the game where you got to dunk on me when I get these things wrong. So.
What's up?
Oh, and just so you know, I believe we'll have a third guest joining us, so I may have to do some scene editing on the fly.
It'll be fun. So later on, we're going to have Nate Beck from Pretzel. He's one of the founders of Pretzel. I believe he's actually in chat right now. So he's going to pop on in a little bit.
Yeah, so bear with us, because again, this is kind of like a last minute. We really wanted to get this topic while it was at the forefront of people's minds. So effectively, the the this act was created in 1998 when you started having these platforms emerge. So
Right.
I'd let, and I could have this wrong. This was still at the peak of Napster, if anyone remembers that, or
Yeah,
close to
yeah.
it.
It was the peak of Napster. Google image search was like a new thing. Might not even have come down the
Like
pipeline.
like LimeWire, like BitTorrents weren't even really a thing yet.
Yeah.
So specifically, this was made to protect the platforms themselves, right, Noah? So effectively, if you're YouTube, right, and you have third-party users using your site, and say I do that and I post the entirety of Avengers Endgame on there, right? Well, Disney and all of these right holders are going to have a huge problem with that. And they're going to say, hey, what are you doing? Take that down. And they're going to try to sue YouTube, right? Because why are you hosting this illegal stuff? Well,
Right. Exactly.
so the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, came in and said, okay, look, we will protect you from a platform as long as you comply with certain things. And this is kind of the safe harbor, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And so it kind of the DMCA kind of forms the foundation upon the internet as we know it today was built. And so what ended up happening was you had, and just to kind of clarify a bit, you have the service provider, which in this case is, in today's case is Twitch. And then you have the rights holder, the person who created the content, and the end user, that's the streamer. And do you know what happens next in between the two?
They go to dinner?
They go to dinner. No, that's not what happens. So
Okay.
essentially, when end user is using content that they don't have the rights to, they upload that content to Twitch, which is the service provider. Well, the person who has the rights and doesn't want that content to be on Twitch without being properly licensed sends a DMCA takedown notice. And so they send in that notice to Twitch. Twitch has no choice but to remove that content unless they want to be held liable for infringement, for that infringement. So effectively, the DMCA provides a way for service providers to provide services in a world where there's user-generated content.
And effectively, I would say, is that this kind of allows Twitch to exist, correct?
Right.
Because if this did not exist, then Twitch would be sued into oblivion.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
like all the times, and this might be touching a third rail, when a major sporting event is going on, and I will never forget this. There was some broadcaster who held a PS4 controller in their hands as if they were playing UFC.
No comment.
Yeah. So that's not great.
Yeah.
So what happens now? Okay, so let's say I think I actually have the rights to this. So we're kind of walking through the process, right? So I stream Avengers Endgame on Twitch, and Disney's like, no, you're not doing that. So they strike me, they take it down, and I say, no.
Well, that's two separate things.
Yep. Okay. So walk us through that then.
You have copyright strikes, which is what everybody's concerned about. And you also have the DMCA notice. So when rights holder, in this case, we have musicians or labels submit DMCA notices to Twitch, Twitch removes the content, but Twitch also issues what we call a copyright strike. Now, that terminology kind of comes a little bit from YouTube. We don't have any particular law to kind of say, well, how many strikes can somebody be issued before the platform should be held liable itself. But the reason we have those copyright strikes is because under the DMCA, the service provider not only has to respond rapidly, quickly, within a reasonable time to the DMCA takedown notice, but they also have to provide for a repeat infringer policy. So if you think about it, when you receive a DMCA, takedown, what is to stop you from just saying, okay, cool, and then re-uploading the content and thereby circumventing the DMCA? Well, that's a repeat infringer policy. You see it on YouTube. Now you're seeing it on Twitch. That's what these strikes enforce. Effectively, they're saying, all right, you got one warning. Okay, you got two warnings. Third time, we're going to remove you from the platform. Third time, you're banned. That is your third strike. You are definitely a repeat infringer at this point, and we're just going to, abide by the DMCA that way. Now, you can have these strikes retracted through a process by appealing to Twitch. Um, but that is not exactly a simple process, and it's not easy to navigate.
So one thing I want to touch on, and this is going to be probably more in the form of opinion than legal guidance.
Hmm.
And I wanted to ask you about this, Noah. So you mentioned you can appeal a strike and get that removed. Now,
Yeah.
I saw a lot of noise on Twitter about the three strike system that Twitch, and I think Loco's alluding to this a little bit.
Right.
Does it have to be a three strike system? I believe the rule is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that effectively you have to have some sort of rule or catch all for repeat infringers.
Yeah, that's a great question. So no, it does not have to be a three-strike system. The only case law that we have about it, though, says that 12 is too many strikes. That's it. We don't know what happens at 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6,
Now,
5,
is
4.
that gated by time? So let's say I've had a channel for 8 years. I'm an old school Justin TV streamer, and now I've converted to Twitch. I've had my partner button forever, and I have 12 strikes over 8 years. Is that viewed differently than me having 12 strikes in 1 month?
So that is stuff that we're still waiting on guidance from Twitch on. Now, unofficially, I can tell you that Twitch does take time in between strikes into account. For example, or at least historically they have. For example, if you received a strike in 2015 and then you receive a strike now in 2020, it's likely that you're going to be treated as having one strike. However, one thing we will notice is that in every single one of these takedown notices we received, these notices to the streamers, they tell you how many strikes you've received before then. And so, for example, on if somebody gets 2 strikes at once, it says this is strikes 1 and 2. Now, what's crazy though is that when the RIAA released a little bit of this information and started going after these people, and the RIAA, by the way, is it's the Recording Industry Association of America. Effectively, they're the trade association that enforces things for the recording industry. Um, when the RIAA sent in these takedown notices, they did it in a huge batch. And so we're finding that some streamers received at least one strike. Some received 2, some received 3 at once and were taken down. And they were temporarily banned from the channel. And at that point, they have the option to counter notify or to ask for retractions.
So I want to put a pin in that just for a second. We'll revisit that, but I want to kind of do my because I was a tutor, so I kind of want to keep underlying concepts, right? So DMCA is when a rights holder says, no, you don't have rights to that, it's mine, and I didn't authorize this, so I'm going to then request a takedown, and then Twitch, the platform, or YouTube will then issue a copy strike to that channel. And then for Twitch, it's 3 strikes out, and I believe YouTube has where they will fall off over time. As long as you're not like a repeat. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong on that. So then to revisit it. So so what would be I believe you said counterclaim?
Yeah, so a counterclaim. So to recap, you have the notification, which is the rights holder saying, "Hey, Twitch, take that down." And then the person who received that, who was the recipient of the notice and the content that was taken down, can actually respond. And they have the option to issue a properly issued counter notice saying, actually, I've got the right to do this. I've got a license to use this music on stream. For example, we have 99 lives in chat. If a streamer received a DMCA notification, takedown notice as a result of using 99 lives music that they have the right to use, they can go and say, actually, I have the right to use it. Here's a copy of 99 Lives license to stream on Twitch,
Now
which is actually publicly
pause. I
available.
want you to pause there, Noah, because I'm going to cue
Yeah,
you up here since you are probably and I'm not gassing you up, probably the most suited to discuss this because of your background in music.
sure.
So I want you to talk about the thing you've talked about, how music rights are actually a nightmare. Because a lot of times people think they have the rights to something and they don't actually have it. And this is very dangerous water for someone to claim they have the right to something, correct?
Right, it definitely is. So, music rights in general, when it comes to the copyright and music rights, it's complicated. It's one of the more complicated aspects of copyright law because you have different sets of rights holders. You have the rights owned by the recording artists, and then you have the rights owned by the people who write the music, so the compositions. So you've got the recording and the composition, and they're separate sets of rights, and sometimes they're not owned by the same people. And so in order to put the music in, on Twitch, you actually have to have rights from both parties. And a lot of people think, okay, well, I'm going to go to a PRO like ASCAP, BMI, CSAC. No, they offer public performance licenses, blanket licenses. I can just sign up and pay for that. Well, they can't, because you won't get the underlying compositional rights. And therefore, you cannot get the synchronization right. The most important right you need to stream on Twitch is the synchronization right.
Now, one thing I want to hit on as well, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep track of the chat because it's moving pretty well,
Sure.
is that let's talk about people who do live music on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I do a cover of a Rolling Stone song. How's that going to work? Is that fine? That's fine, right? That's transformative.
Oh, no, that's not. Also,
Okay.
You just used a fair use term.
No, I know. I'm queuing. That's a tease for something we'll discuss later.
God, you're killing me here.
No, I'm going to keep you on rails, buddy. Trust me.
I love it. So, when it comes, well, what part of that do you want me to answer? If somebody says, "Hey, I've got a cover,"
I'd like you to discuss kind of why actual live performance covers on Twitch are also an exposure point here.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when it comes down to covers, that's a completely separate right. So when you do a cover, that's based on the recording. You don't get the rights to stream that cover on Twitch because you don't have rights in the underlying compositional work. That said, it's not transformative. It's not fair use. And I will say Mona in chat, who is that Cherished in chat, is another attorney here in the space. Shout out to Mona, who wrote a really good article that she shared with me earlier today about Lens v. Universal. And so the Lens v. Universal really gave us a good look at fair use in general. And so that was a case where it's commonly known as the dancing baby case, where you had a baby that was dancing around a kitchen to Prince, and his mom filmed it. And mom filmed it, uploaded it to YouTube, and then Universal came along and said, actually, that has Prince's song in it, and we're going to take it down. Well, it's an adorable video. And so the mom fought it, and fought it up pretty high, actually. I believe it was pretty high in the Ninth Circuit. And so they took a look at the 4 fair use factors, which are the purpose and character of the use, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount and substantiality of the portion that was taken, and the effect of the use upon the potential market. Now, I'll break that down for you guys. Effectively, what they were saying was that the use of that music in the background of that video affected the market, affected the song on the public market. That's an oversimplification of the case, but that's what you need to hear here. And so the Lens v. Universal case is one of those very narrowly construed cases where fair use was actually found. And it was found that people don't come there for the Prince song. They come there to see a cute baby dancing. A lot of people, my own employer included, are arguing that Lens v. Universal sets a precedent for modern cases on Twitch, which they're saying, Ryan Morrison included, saying that people don't come to streams for the music, they come there for the gameplay, and the music is tangential to that. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that music adds to the overall ambiance and environment of a stream. And so I think artists should be compensated appropriately for that.
Well, so let's talk about that specifically. So you kind of hit on something I want to talk about on that exact avenue, is that, okay, so let's say you really believe that, you get an attorney, right? You're arguing this out, you have one case for precedent. How costly is it going to be for you if you really want to run this to ground and stick to your guns on it?
Yeah, so that kind of takes us back to counter notifying.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. So you counter notify, and they disagree. They say, nope, you don't have the rights.
So what's going to happen is, if you counter notify and say, listen, this is authorized use, this is fair use. Well, fair use is a defense to a lawsuit, and it's not a right. So you can make a counter notification based on fair use, but I don't know how far it's going to get you, because when you counter notify, Twitch then has to put the content back up on Twitch. And then the party that took it down, in this case the RIAA, has no choice but to come through and submit and either sue you or let it stay up. And if they sue you, you don't have the money typically to defend a lawsuit in the music business, because it can be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight.
Gotcha. Sorry, I'm just grabbing more questions from chat. So,
absolutely fine.
Rini wanted you to redefine sync rights again.
Okay. So sync rights. So a sync license is essentially the right to synchronize music in time relation to images or video. So it's the license that you've got to have in order to use music in your streams or in your video content. And so if you are going to have music on a stream, you have to have a sync license. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you don't have a sync license for the music you're playing, you can't use it. You're going to open yourself up to a DMCA.
Okay. Now, so we've kind of talked about the DMCA, the mechanics of it, the striking, how you can, fight that. Now, is there a way to potentially get a strike removed for removing the content and, saying like, nope, it was a mistake, or some other avenue to get a strike removed?
So typically if you are saying that there's a mistake, you can appeal directly to the rights holder that issued the takedown notice. But that's not always going to get you pretty far. So if you look at this past weekend, hundreds, if not thousands of takedowns were issued by the RIAA. And so they have no obligation to necessarily work with you. So you have your hands tied in a lot of cases.
So kind of to summarize where we are in the discussion, kind of bullet points for people, right? Music rights are extremely complicated.
Right.
More so than probably any other IP? Is that at least an arguable position?
Yeah, I would say music rights are one of the more complicated. Patent rights are pretty complicated as well.
Okay. Okay. And the other thing is, so your kind of avenues for relief are very difficult, right? Because you may think you own the rights, and then you could get dragged into a lawsuit because, again, like I just said, they're very complicated, and you actually don't have the rights to broadcast that music. And then, your ability to potentially get a strike removed is difficult because the person who issued the notice has no obligation to work with you.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was going to say, Matt, this is kind of relevant, and I don't want to come back to this at the end, but Matt Horton Music asked, hey, can we kind of discuss covers again and kind of how that, and I believe this is in reference to like live performance on Twitch.
Gotcha. Yeah, no. So I actually wrote an entire article about covers, and I can link it here. 1 second. But it's part of that similar medium conversation that I had on the that we linked earlier in chat. So basically, when it comes down to covers, cover a song is a completely original recording of an existing song. So basically, if somebody creates a cover song, they're creating a completely new original recording using their own instrumental, own voice typically. However, that doesn't apply to a remix. There's a difference between a remix and a cover. Because Peter doesn't own the original songs, he's going to have to pay, Peter being Peter Hollins in this case, I'm referencing my other article. He's still going to need to pay royalties to the song's original creator. So you can get mechanical licenses to do that through services like Louder. And typically the mechanical licenses have you pay the original song creator per download of a track. So if you're creating a cover and trying to stream it on Twitch, that's going to be difficult because you're creating an original recording of an existing song, and that existing song being the underlying composition.
Okay. So we're going to take a breath because we're moving really quick through all these topics,
seriously.
right? Like, because this is a very, this is a topic that has a lot of breadth and depth to it, right? And there's some other things I want to talk about with it, but so we've talked about, the mechanics of it again and kind of how you seek remedies, right? So let's go through, let's kind of unpack and just dunk on some of the things that we hear all the time in this area. So number one, it's transformative in nature. So I'm streaming something, and then I have a game in the background. I've transformed both works, and therefore it's transformative. It's fair use. I should be able to do this.
I'll cut you off right now and
Yep.
say that if we're considering fair use is a defense, not a right, and nobody in this chat has the ability to defend that. It is extremely expensive, and these you got what you happened this weekend was you had a lot of labels, rights holders say Twitch is an untapped market, similar to what YouTube was in 2015, and we can make a lot of money by properly licensing on Twitch, and it's worth a lot to them to figure this out, to force people to license, to force people to pay them for these rights. So if you're going to come in here and say, hey, fair use, it's wonderful, it's perfect, I'm using fair use as a defense to these DMCAs. I'm using fair use to claim that I can use this music, and it's not going to work. It's really expensive. So fair use completely out. If there's somebody out there that can tell me with 100% certainty every time what transformative is and what is derivative work, and what is transformative enough for fair use, they're going to make $1 million. They're going to make billions of dollars because it's court specific and there's not a lot of case law.
So, did something happen this weekend, Noah, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so this past weekend, what happened was the RIAA came out and dunked on a lot of people. They issued a lot of takedowns. And what's interesting is that the RIAA appears to have only issued takedowns for a certain selection of music that they have the right to issue takedowns for. So what we're seeing here is a sliver of what they can do. Now, they're opening up the floodgates, kind of sending a shot across the bow and saying, hey, broadcasters on Twitch, this is a warning. You need to properly license the music. Otherwise, we're going to come and destroy you. And so I think that this was the wake-up call that a lot of people needed to go back and say, oh, my clips of my VODs on my ancient streams contain music that I don't have the rights to. I could lose my entire channel, my entire livelihood if I don't remedy this. So going forward, I'm expecting a lot of people to need to answer questions about their sources of their music for their stream. You're seeing a lot of people on Twitter saying, hey, I don't have the rights to stream this music. Where am I going to find this? They're turning to various sources. Where can I find copyright-free music? Which is a misnomer. And I think a sea change is coming to where we're going to need to work with Twitch, but also work with existing services such as Pretzel to make sure that people have the rights for the music that they are streaming in their stream.
So this gets into the next thing I wanted to talk about. So if you've ever looked at and Remy the Siren's actually gonna brought a question that I wanted to talk about. So when you watch a VOD, if you've ever done that, no, I'm sure you have, you've seen that sections of it are muted. And there was streamer Twitter outrage to the fact that if you can have this tech for VODs, why aren't you applying it to clips? And I think that's kind of a fair argument from a standpoint of, hey, we're partnered, we're creators for you, and we have an agreement in place. However, here's the thing I'm going to say this, and I'm kind of going to dunk on Twitter streamer, clip it. You're responsible for your stream. You're responsible for all of your content. You're responsible for your taxes. You're responsible for all the contracts you sign. I understand that Twitch should have better tools, and I wholeheartedly agree. But ultimately, who is responsible for your content? Who is responsible for what are you putting on your channel? You.
Exactly.
So listen, yeah. But VODs are, right, Grit, I get it. But VODs are auto-muted. Well, yeah, they should have applied it to protect streamers, and I think I saw someone make this point, was like, look, maybe if they didn't do that, this second reckoning wouldn't have happened, and they would have taken it seriously back then.
So it's important to remember, and I briefly touched on this earlier today, and I'm going to dive a little bit back into it, is that there are companies out there that have the ability to monitor live streams and flip a switch and say, okay, well, you know what? We're DMCAing this guy right now because he's playing, Ariana Grande's 7 Rings. Also, it's right in the front of my head right now. So,
and pause there, no. Wait, so I wanted to bring that up. So, I didn't understand this, and you made this on Marcus DJ Wheat's show earlier this morning. So the technology exists for bots and Recording Industry Association of America?
Recording, yes, yeah. It is the Recording Industry Association of America.
So there's tech that exists clearly to scrub a VOD, a YouTube video for copyrighted material that people don't have the rights to. Clearly there is technology that exists to scrub the clips now through the Twitter API and all those things, correct? Now you just said something that should be terrifying to all creators.
Right.
They have the ability and the technology to scrub live streams.
Right.
I want you to like underline, bold, italicize, 72 font this for people.
Yeah, no, there's been a company out there, at least one. I've been informed earlier today that there might be multiple that have the ability and have been monitoring live content. They go out there and they have the ability to say, okay, this song, based on a fingerprint they have, is live in all these places. It's also recorded here. It's also been published on YouTube here, that kind of thing. And they have the ability to suddenly say, okay, let's enforce. Let's go to town. And nothing really is stopping them from flipping that switch, except they just have decided not to do it yet. And I think that there's two ways that can play out. One, they could flip that switch and shoot a bunch of DMCAs, and then all of a sudden your favorite streamer goes down live. You're watching them, boom, that streamer's gone. The second thing that could happen is they're recording all of that stuff independently of Twitch. And when Twitch mutes your VODs after your stream, doesn't matter because that's been recorded elsewhere. And then they send off a letter to you saying, hey, you used our music in your stream today. Here's a clip of it. Since you've been using our music in your stream, pay us $500 for the licensing fee, which we would have charged you otherwise.
So Noah and I are friends, and so I know Noah has kind of done the rounds. Like I said at the start of the show, he is the prettiest person at the ball. He was on DJ Wheat Show this morning. He just was doing a podcast for publication later, and his Twitter DMs have all blown up. So I know you're kind of at the end of your day. You're exhausted. At this point, is there anything that we discussed where you want to, speak more on, add more color? Because I have some other unique things I want to discuss that might tee you up.
So I think that at this point we had discussed bringing on Nate. And so I would love to bring Nate on. I know that he's in chat right now. And so I want to kind of invite him on because we got about 20 minutes left. I want to talk to Nate about this. He's one of the founders of Pretzel. This is one of the issues that Pretzel's been facing and has worked to solve. And so I think that honestly, Nate knows a ton about these rights as well. I learn stuff from Nate every time I talk to him. So Nate, if you're in chat, feel free to go ahead and click the Zoom link.
I'm probably going to go to our intro screen for this just so I can alter the captures.
Yeah.
But Noah, while he's joining, I want to bring up something that I think is an interesting exposure point here. So
Sure.
I'm playing GTA 5 or GTA 4. I turn on Liberty City Radio. I'm playing Just Dance, and it's playing music. What do you recommend for these broadcasters? Where they stand? How exposed are they?
So if you're tuning in, for example, and seeing Just Dance music, and you're a Just Dance streamer, you're freaking out right now, and rightly so, because your job is to you dance to popular music. And I can talk about this while we're in waiting and while you queue up.
Yeah, so I'm gonna admit him, and then I'm gonna go to the intro screen,
Sure.
while this answer's going. So
Sounds good. So what happens if you're a Just Dance streamer and you're working on trying to figure out what does my livelihood look like? And that's a great question. We're talking to a lot of people about that right now. We don't have 100% answers. There is modded stuff that you can use as well. So I would consider if you are a Just Dance streamer, if you're a Beat Saber streamer, reaching out to your lawyer. You got me, you got Ryan Morrison, you got That Cherished, you got Mona in chat. We're all here to help. We offer free consults, and we're happy to chat. If you are playing, for example, in GTA 5, and you turn on a radio, I think GTA 5 still has all the licenses, but older versions of GTA actually don't have all the rights right now. And so it is.
It's good enough. It's more important to get good information out here and keep it flowing. So, this again, and I kind of want you to hit on this again. So you're freaking
Yeah.
out. You're a Just Dance streamer. We saw, someone get striked for that from like a Cake by the or a DNC song. Your
For a Cake by the Ocean.
Yeah. Like what? So what do you say here?
So if you, a lot of games have the ability, obviously if it's Just Dance or Beat Saber, you don't have this ability because you're actually using the music as part of it. But if you're on GTA 5 and playing any other kind of game that has inherent music, you can typically toggle in-game music. Or in the event that you don't have in-game music, you turn down in-game sound and turn up Pretzel. And I think that's a good segue to Nate.
Hey Nate, thanks for joining us.
And let's do an audio check for Nate. Can everybody hear Nate in chat?
Am I coming through?
You're a little low.
All right, 1 second. It's a new headset, so.
Nice. You also just had a move, so congratulations, my friend.
Well, we're trying at least. Oh, it's set to automatically. There we go. How's that? Does that sound better?
Says turn up Nate. Little low, but you got
Little
this.
low? Am I good?
I think you're good. I think
There we
good,
go.
yeah.
Much better.
Like I tell my teammates in Valorant when they're not using the comms and their mic is low, just put the microphone directly into your mouth.
I got it. We got this.
So yeah, Nate, welcome. Obviously you and I work together all the time. You're familiar with Ernest as well, and so wanted to welcome you onto the show and give you a chance to talk about your experience learning music rights and the problem that you set out to address when you found Pretzel or founded Pretzel.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me on. One of the things that's actually really interesting, and I want to just go back for a second to make this absolutely crystal clear, is that there are two different copyrights when it comes to music. And this is where a lot of the confusion comes into. And so just so everybody knows that what we're talking about here and where those rights rely is there is composition, which I'll get to what they are, and then there's master. And they all have different synonyms as to what they are, but composition is the song itself. So a good example of this is the song Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Hold on, we're going to get a strike if you do that.
No, because it's public domain.
It is now, yeah.
Right? So that song, those lyrics and those things, that's the song Happy Birthday. Now, if I record a kazoo cover and to a microphone and do a kazoo cover of Happy Birthday, I own the master, the sound recording of the actual Happy Birthday recording. So that's Nate's kazoo cover of the song Happy Birthday.
Right.
So, but those two rights are completely different rights. So the composition, and most of the time, by the way, this is why music law is so complicated. Most of the time, the person who holds the publishing, so publishing is the entity that holds the composition, is a completely different company than the record label, which is the company that holds the master, the sound recording.
Right.
So one way people approach this problem in general, like 99 Lives, No Copyright Sounds, Monster Cat, Epidemic Sound, even Harris Heller's Stream Beats.
Right.
What they do is they sign the music and they own 100% of the composition rights as the publisher and 100% of the master rights as the record label. And so we call that a 200% ownership. And it makes it really, really easy to do permissive licensing for broadcasters or any of those other places. And so you see this in a lot of different places with like production music catalog or whatever. But when you try to apply that same ownership model to any other song out there that's in, your top 40 radio or any of the majors or any of those things, it falls apart completely because, you look at like a Drake song, for example, God's Plan. They have 19 publishers and 9 record labels on that one track.
It's insane.
So if you wanted to basically license God's Plan for use on Twitch, you would have to get all 19 publishers to sign off and agree on a rate, right? So there's this fun little thing in music law called the Most Favored Nation Clause, which means whoever gets the best rate, everyone gets that rate.
Right.
So if someone negotiates $1,000, now you have to pay $19,000 to each of them, even if one person initially said, well, I want $50. If someone negotiates $1,000, you have to then pay that.
Now,
and then Go ahead, Noah.
I was going to say, to be fair, we wouldn't be negotiating to get God's Plan onto Twitch. We'd be looking to get it on Mixer. Because Ninja switched to Mixer.
I don't get it. What do you? Could you
Come on, Ernest.
explain the joke? I don't really get it.
It's a Drake joke. I get it. But it's one of the reasons why Ninja, having played video games with Drake, can't even play Drake's music on his own stream, or Drake can't even play his own music on stream. That's why it's difficult.
So I want to reemphasize, since we don't typically have a call in person, I'm going to do a little bit of a radio voice. So you're on Your Brand, Your Business with Nate Beck. I believe, what is your official title with Pretzel Rocks, Nate?
Oh man, I think my official title is mixologist.
President, founder, mixologist, and fantastic bartender. Then.
I think that's what my LinkedIn actually has my title as at the moment.
Galen says you're lead badass. So we'll also go with that.
Really is.
So I don't know if you were listening in while we were kind of going over kind of our overview and talking about kind of all these exposure points, and people think they can defend themselves with either transformative or fair use or yada yada yada. Did you have any feedback specifically that you thought that we should have emphasized?
Yeah, so covers, right? So the thing that's interesting about covers is, remember that there's two different works that we're talking about here. So if a person is going to, let's just say, call them what they are, performers. I like the term buskers. It's a UK word, but a person who basically is a performer who is making all the music themselves, and playing, like a 24K Brown Magic is a good example of that.
I had to explain to an IRS agent that Twitch streamers were buskers, and they got it. So
yeah, or exactly, yeah. And then like a couple streams is another example of this. So this is where it's interesting. If you are playing a song, remember, we're talking about the composition, the song, the thing owned by the publishers. Even if you are completely using separate instruments and everything else, you still don't own the song. So when you play somebody else's song on a stream, you should be paying the publisher so that the writers and composers can be paid for that use. And so this is where it gets really interesting, because you talk about karaoke and all these other things. But even if you don't use the master at all, and you go just on the composition side of the house, there's a synchronization license, right? That is required to even just perform. And so if you don't video record it, right? Let's just take that to a person performing in a restaurant, right? Not being videoed. Then in that case, the restaurant, to pay the rights holder for that song, would have to have a public performance license with a PRO.
Right.
And then would pay the PRO and tell them what songs were used so that those rights holders can get paid. And that's how live music in live music in bars or restaurants, that's how that works.
So sorry, I don't want to cut you
go
off,
ahead.
but
Please.
I think so. I don't know how long you guys can stay on. I think we're gonna probably go a couple minutes long, if that's okay, just to get the questions and everything like that.
Cool by me.
But Nate, you hit something specifically, and because the StreamerSquare chat is 7,000 IQ, probably the smartest chat on Twitch, I'm surprised we haven't got a question about this. But you mentioned karaoke, so then someone should be asking in chat, well, how does Twitch Sings work?
Yep. So that's actually really straightforward. What they do is, so for karaoke, and karaoke actually has its own really interesting carve out in the law. So Twitch Sings has a library of master recordings. Now, these master recordings are essentially recordings that were created just for the use of karaoke. So there's companies who make covers essentially without vocals of all of these songs, but they own the recording. So if you just go out and you just start making cover songs of all this stuff, so they sell this big blanket license of, here is 100,000 masters of these popular songs, and this is the license, we'll let you pay us for this.
Right.
And then for the publishing side, you have Twitch, who makes a deal with a blanket organization like the NMPA, or it's the IFPIA or something. I can't remember. There's another United States. There's two of them. There's an international and a national that basically are a collective bargaining body specific for publishers. And so they negotiate a blanket deal with them, and then they're able to do that. But Twitch can't just use any song that they want. they only can use the ones that were negotiated in this karaoke package.
Right.
So that has the master contributed in there. So if you just want to turn on Taylor Swift, which it may be there, it may not be in there, but the person who's footing the bill there is Twitch. Twitch is footing the bill to license this use in a very specific way. And they have a game client that tracks all of the usage and reports that back so that rights holders get paid appropriately.
Right, because if we all remember, Twitch Sings is not just a feature; it's also a game in itself. And so they've sunk a lot of time into that. And they see a lot of good return on it, and they have a reason to go out and license all that stuff. Now, when it comes down to getting the licenses for their streamers, Twitch is under no obligation, nor I think will it elect to go out and get these licenses, at least at this point. I think they're going to rely on third-party tools such as Pretzel, or they're going to rely on streamers finding out their own solutions at this point. Now, Nate, one of the questions that I have for you is getting started, going out and starting to build up Pretzel and effectively go out and solicit these synchronization rights. What is some of the issues that you had as somebody who's just going out trying to build something on your own?
Yeah, so sync is interesting because, so let me take one step back and talk about a different right other than sync for just a second, because I think it'll give some clarity.
Sure.
So there's another right called the mechanical right. The mechanical right is whenever a copy of a song is made. So going back to the 1900s, there was a player piano company who was making rolls of paper, right, to play the songs on the player piano. And so they were literally punching holes in these pieces of paper that were of these songs. So let's just say they took the song Happy Birthday, they punched the holes in there and put it into the player piano.
I love this story.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is where it came from, right?
Yeah, it is.
So the people who made the songs, the writers of that song, they went to the player piano company and said, you need to pay us to use our song. And the player piano company is like, no, we don't. And so the rights holders, the musicians, sued the player piano company and lost in court. So then the songwriters got together and lobbied Congress to pass the requirement of a mechanical license, which is anytime a copy of a song is made into a tangible form, so printed on a piece of, like, punched in holes in a piece of paper, or sheet music, or a CD is pressed, or a vinyl, or a cassette, or an iTunes download, or a stream, a mechanical license has to be paid for that song. Again, not for the recording. The recording has nothing to do with the song itself. And so that's where mechanical licensing came from. And so synchronization comes from a very similar vein of this type of stuff, right? So if you are, like, if you think about movies in the 1950s or 60s, right? You're talking about a person literally playing a piano to a moving motion picture because audio wasn't in the motion picture. And so for that right to be paid, they had to pay a synchronization license for that. And that's where this all started and where it came from.
And this is why we bring Nate on, because he knows this history to a T, and I love hearing it.
So, but yeah, that's essentially where we're at with this. And there's other rights too. There's publishing has one of my favorites that we don't sign on Pretzel, but I wish we did, is called the grand right. The grand right is the right to perform the song on Broadway.
Oh, you broke up, but I think you were going to say Broadway.
It was on Broadway.
Negotiate grand rights at Pretzel, but I wish we did.
Yeah, we had talked about it for a little bit, peel the curtain back. When we were first looking at these rights, when, I was a young lawyer and Pretzel was a young service, didn't even have an interface. We were going through these rights and we were talking about the grand right. And I'm like, as a former actor, I want to get grand rights. And you said, no, that's a waste of time.
Yeah. So,
okay, so
yeah,
Nate,
go ahead.
anything else? So I want to start getting to questions, but anything else you want to cover, while we've got you?
No, let's hit up the question.
Okay, so I'm gonna get you guys loose for questions. I'm gonna give you some easy ones. Okay.
All right.
I put at the bottom of my stream, no copyright infringement intended. Am I covered?
No.
Okay, good. I have a.
In fact, let me take that a little bit further. If you put in no copyright intended, that is going to be a signal to me as a lawyer submitting a DMCA, because our firm does that too. That's going to be a signal to me that almost that you are infringe. You don't have the right to do this, but you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, you're admitting that you're infringing.
Effectively, yeah.
Okay. But I have like a Spotify subscription, guys, and like that's good enough, right? I have all the rights then.
So actually, and Nate, I'll segue into you for this, but actually, Spotify specifically says in their terms of service, I think it's still section 9.1, that you cannot use their service to broadcast music on other platforms. And so that's why Spotify doesn't work. That's why Pretzel was, part of the reason Pretzel was created, in fact, because you can't use it.
Well, so Spotify, that's an interesting one. So what are the rights that Spotify actually needs, right? Spotify needs mechanical licensing. That's it. That's mechanical licensing and master use. Those are the only rights that Spotify needs. The problem that they run into is not even Spotify is paying their mechanical licensing correctly.
No.
So they had a class action lawsuit for, I think it was $580 million that they lost 3 years ago, and then just settled out of court with Tom Petty and Dolly Parton's publishing company because they sued them for $1.6 billion for lack of paying the mechanicals properly. And so that's a whole big fiasco that's happening on the Spotify side. And that's only those two rights.
I mean, in the words of the immortal Dolly Parton, what a way to make a living.
Oh my God.
All right. So wait.
Also, you should be asking about SoundCloud as well, because a lot of people are saying, okay, well, here's my SoundCloud. Use my music. This is on my SoundCloud. Problem is, SoundCloud has similar restrictions in that SoundCloud does not allow you to use it to stream on other platforms, but also when you use music on SoundCloud, you're agreeing that SoundCloud does not review the content created by its users. So if somebody uploads, a direct ripoff of a Taylor Swift song, but they label it something else and you use it on stream, you're still going to be liable.
Yeah, that's where, going back to covers for just a second, that's where buskers are really interesting because it's fairly difficult. So one of the ways that these automated tools are working is what's called, signal fingerprint detection, right? So they're basically taking the audio, just like Shazam, right? Where you listen to audio and it identifies the song that's playing. It's the same process. And so it's really, really easy to find infringement of sound recordings. It's much harder to find infringement on compositions, right? So if a person is playing a song, even though it's not licensed, it will be much more difficult to automate a process that would find it, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
All right, so we're going to get to questions now. I got a lot, but feel free to throw them in chat. I'm going to throw them into a Word doc. I'm going to throw it to our two subject matter experts here. Thank you to Noah Downs and Nate Beck for joining us. Right? It's Nate Beck, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. Because we met, but it's one of those things where we met in passing at a con, and you know how that
I
goes.
introduced you guys at some point. It was fine.
All right. So this one is, I heard a streamer say they were safe from DMCA because they were using the instrumental version of songs.
No.
Why? Talk about the licenses again.
So again, break it down, right? Break it down into the two pieces. A song is still the song with or without lyrics.
Right.
So it's still the same song. So all of the stuff that happens on publishing, it includes the melody, it includes the timing, and actually not even the timing or tempo, but necessarily the melody of the song still resides in the composition, right?
Yeah.
So even if it's an instrumental version, it doesn't matter. It's still the same song. Plus, you also don't own the instrumental recording unless it's a master that you made yourself, right?
And on top of that, to take that first bit even further, a lot of people have this misconception that because you're getting something from the writers of a song, people associate writing with words, and therefore they say, oh, if I remove the lyrics, it's not what's written. But you actually got to remember, writing also applies to notes on a page. Yeah. And so if you're writing a song, you're creating everything about it, the composition, the placement of the notes, all that.
Well, that's one of my questions for Ernest here is like, so Ernest, is poetry copyrightable?
I'm a simple CPA, so I have no idea.
But I'm saying, what would your gut reaction be?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's exactly the same sort of laws and rules that lyrics of a song fall under. They fall under very, very... Lyrics of a song are under the same sets of rules as poetry. So how it's represented, how it's written, and how it's shared, the lyrics themselves are copywritten under the publishing half of the work.
Yep.
So.
All right. So I didn't keep names in chat. I feel like this one is going to catch some undue flack because this is kind of when I went on my mini rant during it. So apologies to who this is because I think you're about to get dunked on with respect. Question. Also, why can't companies look at it as free advertising of their music rather than us stealing their content? We aren't pirating music, we're just playing their music to help who might not even know who the song or artist is, which is a form of advertising.
Yeah, that's a great question. So effectively what you're saying is that these labels and these artists that are making a ton of money, even without you using their music, should go to you, the person who's streaming, for their exposure and not be compensated.
I saw a tweet on this, and it was basically something I think it might have been Morrison. It was saying, it's funny that all the broadcasters are saying, but it's like a form of advertising, like I'm helping people discover, and they're basically passing along the for the exposure meme.
Yeah, and I'm sure that these broadcasters and would also be happy to have their content taken and used by another company, such as Tide, to promote Tide. Without being paid as well.
Are you sponsored by Tide? Why'd you go to Tide?
I am not sponsored by Tide. I just said it in a very radio-like way. But no, so if someone were to go off,
it's a great detergent, though, everyone. I just want you to know.
Take for example, we have Rini in chat. So if someone were to take a Rini stream and say, use it to promote Tide, Rini should be compensated for that. It's the exact same thing the other way.
Yeah. A good question that I saw in chat from Mike Darlington of Monster Cat said, but you said you wouldn't copy strike me. Why did I get a content ID claim on YouTube? Or another version of that is, you said you wouldn't DMCA strike me. Why did I get muted on Twitch? Why is my VOD muted? So let's take a second and just talk about, remember how we talked about these fingerprinting systems that are automated that find these recordings? So Content ID is one of those on YouTube that uses these sound recordings to identify things. Now, when YouTube had this problem, the problem that we're facing on Twitch right now, YouTube's solution was to introduce Content ID. And so YouTube found themselves in this really interesting predicament. All of their most popular content was infringing. And they were getting struck by all of these DMCA takedowns and strikes and banning people and having to ban their content creators. And the problem with that is, if that's the case, YouTube can't sell ads on videos that are taken down.
Right.
So YouTube's approach to this problem was, okay, rights holders, we hear you. Give us, let us know, tell us, give us a fingerprint of all of your works, all of your sound recordings that you own, right? Mm-hmm. And then we will detect when those things are being used, and then we'll still sell ads on that video. We'll take our 50%, and then we'll give you the other 50% instead of the content creator who stole your work. So Content ID is a compromise. So when you receive a Content ID claim on YouTube, you are not receiving a DMCA strike. The DMCA is not involved at all. You are basically saying that YouTube has worked out a deal with the rights holders that say, if you just pay us the money that this video earns instead, we'll allow the content to stay up. YouTube makes money and the rights holder makes money, but then the content creators can't make anything. And this is right. What you see with Beat Saber, Just Dance, all of those games that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's how their YouTube channels are. They're completely demonetized. I don't want that to happen on Twitch.
No.
Right? I don't want to have a Content ID thing. And that's essentially what we're doing with Pretzel, by the way. So Pretzel is a completely different approach. Yeah, so what Pretzel essentially does is we go and license the rights from all of those people that we're talking about. So if we were to license Drake's God's Plan, we would have to have signed contracts with about 28 different entities.
Yep.
And so that's a lot of work, right? And so we have a system that we're currently in alpha testing on called Fox. The Fox system essentially tracks rights for both the composition and the master in its entirety, and basically handles basic clearance. And so when we first started Pretzel, the way we approached it was to work with companies that had those 200% rights. because they were the easiest to license, because it was very, very, very easy to get one person to sign a license, for what we needed. And so, but as we've grown larger and larger, the audience wants to play the music they want to play.
Right.
So we had to evolve the platform in a way that we can actually sign top 40 artists, sign all these other people, and get people involved to get on the platform. And that's the work we're doing now. And we're making a lot of really good progress on this. And so, anyways, more questions. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
that was good. And we got the obligatory, what does the fox say? I missed that part in chat from Galen. So thank you, Galen, for ruining chat.
So from Loco, should we be deleting all of our clips?
I'll let the attorney answer that one.
Yeah. So if the only way to ensure that you're not going to receive a DMCA on a clip is if the clip doesn't exist. That sucks. It really sucks. It's heartbreaking to see years and years of grinding hard work be just deleted because of this threat. And so what I'm seeing a lot of broadcasters do is to download all of their clips so that they have copies and records of them. And then they delete them. And you can't DMCA a clip if it doesn't exist. And so that's the only way to be 100% safe. Unless, this is going to suck, unless you're using Pretzel, or if you're using like licenses from Monster Cat, or you're using music from 99 Lines, in which case that music is good to go.
That's one of the big things that I don't like about the term copyright free or royalty free, is that it's just not accurate. Like the music is licensed. It's licensed music.
Yeah.
So with Monster Cat, you pay Monster Cat Gold, right? And you now have a license to use their catalog. We do have a free tier for Pretzel. One of the things about the free tier for Pretzel, though, is it has been very, very difficult to get a lot of larger artists on board with their music being used only for exposure purposes.
Bugs.
Right. And so one of the things that we're looking at doing is signing parts of the catalog, but putting it behind a larger pay tier. Because that's the type of stuff, like there's so many people I've seen on Twitter this week that have basically said, oh, why isn't there just a blanket license that I can pay that will basically cover all of the licensing? And it's because A, that doesn't exist. It's just not a thing that exists. And B, it would be so astronomically expensive that no broadcaster could pay for it, right? The public performance license for a radio station, right? So let's talk about what rights a radio station needs, right? A radio station has to have public performance on the song.
Right.
And then this is actually a really funny tidbit. In the United States, there's another, the master actually gets paid nothing. So record labels get paid nothing when a song gets played on the radio. But in other countries, there's a thing called neighboring rights, and that's where they actually get paid. Okay, so ASCAP and BMI, we're talking six figures. So the business model of a radio station is to pay your PRO licensing and then make enough money in advertising to cover your costs and your license. Like that's the business model of a radio station. But you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get the license to get started. And that only covers one thing. I got in an argument on Twitter today about it, is public performance is one piece of the puzzle. And when it comes to who pays the license for public performance, it's actually the venue. And so Twitch is the one who actually pays that licensing fee for public performance. And so, yeah.
Yep. All right, so we got to wrap up. We have two more questions that we want to hit. Noah has one of them. But I want to put like an underline on, okay, what about the music, the games where music is featured prominently? So Beat Saber, Just Dance, GTA are the ones that come to my mind. What advice do you have for creators with those sort of streams and content that they're creating?
Yeah, so if it's a GTA stream that is playing music and you're not sure, toggle the music off. If it's a Just Dance stream, try and use a modded Just Dance stream that works with music that you can find that they have the rights to. If it is Beat Saber actually has specific packs for streaming, such as I know there's a Monster Cat pack. Nate, is there a 99 Lives or Pretzel correlated pack?
There's on Synth Riders, not necessarily in Beat Saber yet.
And Just Shapes and Beats too, I believe.
Yeah, there's also some really interesting stuff here. There are game developers who are adding stream modes into this. For example,
Yeah.
Rocket League, Fortnite, they have stream modes that basically solve a lot of these kind of problems with music in the background that is stream friendly. And so that's where, as streamers, Join Jess has a really interesting thought on this, but like there's no collective governing like organization that represents broadcasters, which I think is sorely needed. And one of the big things that kind of needs to happen is game developers know that streaming is good for them. They need to help you guys out by saying, you know what? Give me like Clone Heroes is a good example of this, right? Mm-hmm. If Clone Heroes sets it up so not only do they get the music license for their video game, but that license also extends to content creators streaming their video game or on YouTube,
right?
That is what needs to happen, right? So 99 Lives Music is permissive for this, but the game developer licenses synth writers, and then synth writers, 99 Lives will also license it to content creators making content from synth writers. And Monster Cat does that with Rocket League and their Beat Saber patch. You have to have Monster Cat Gold, but that's how it works.
Okay, now hit your question, and then we'll go to outros.
So we got one from Yaganub, which I think is really interesting and a little topical today. They say, did you see the Amazon Music extension? And so that came out very recently. I don't think it was today, but it was very recently. Effectively,
oh, no, it's the Amazon Music extension's been out for probably
really
6 months. Yeah,
it's been completely off my radar. But essentially, the Amazon Music extension gives streamers who are Amazon Prime members or, Amazon Music Unlimited, which is the music service, subscribers, the ability to share music with their viewers who are also Prime members or Amazon Music Unlimited subscribers, similar to, the watch-alongs that they have allowed now with the Amazon services. Mm-hmm. And so that's really interesting. That's really cool. It's a very limited, helpful tool from Twitch. Because it requires people to have Prime or Amazon Music.
Yeah, so the way they get around it is really interesting. The music is never actually synchronized to video. That's the way it works, right? So you don't need a sync license. You don't need a sync license if you're listening to music on your computer, and then your viewers have their own music player listening to on their side, right?
Yeah.
So all it does is it synchronizes the players so that they work.
Yeah.
The downside of it is it doesn't work on mobile. So if you're watching a stream on mobile, the actual broadcast itself has no music in it at all.
Right.
And so that's one big problem. You also have to have Prime. Mm-hmm. Every viewer has to have Prime or Amazon Music subscription to be able to listen to it. So it's a really creative way to try to get around the issue. I think Spotify might do something similar, right. And that would be a really interesting, potentially compelling thing. But
Spotify already has something fairly similar to it, and it plugs in. Doesn't it plug in with Discord?
Well, there's the Discord listening parties, which is similar, but doesn't require sync, right? So because you're not actually synchronizing the video.
So,
cool.
All right, so we hit a lot of things. I kind of want to get to outros. We couldn't answer every question. But Nate, why don't you, plug your stuff, tell us about yourself as an outro.
Sorry, one more time?
Nate, tell us where we can find you and any services or things you want to plug.
Sorry. So my Twitter is Not for the Win, KNAUGHTFTW. I also go by Not on Twitch, KNAUGHT. I do not stream. It's funny because there was actually a streamer, Wild, who thought it was hilarious to basically make people follow me. So I have like 500 or 400 followers or something.
That's awesome.
I have never broadcast before. And then, so I run Pretzel Rocks, www.pretzel.rocks. It's free to get in, listen to the music, and everything that's on Pretzel is licensed for use on Twitch and Mixer.
I worked on that.
Makes it much easier.
And I'll go take it from there. So anyone who had a question that didn't get an answer today, you can reach out to me. My name is Noah Downs. I'm a lawyer. I work at the law firm of Morrison Rothman LLP. And so you can shoot me an email, noah@morrisonrothman.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter at @mylawyerfriend. My email is actually in my bio, so please do make sure you follow me over there. I also do stream at my lawyer friend on Twitch as well.
And I am Ernest Jones. I am a CPA that helps broadcasters, game developers, and just basically anyone helped with their taxes. But I will say as a last word, you really should hit up Noah because I'm going to quote something that he says all the time. And this is kind of the hammer line. Practically everything that everybody does on Twitch is illegal. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you next time. We're going to figure out what our next content packages are. If you have any topics you want us to cover, let us know. We're probably off next week unless there is another emergency. So thank you so much for joining us, everybody.
All right. Thanks so much, y'all. Thanks, Nate.
Thanks, everyone.